Welcome to Unpacked, 5 Questions, a podcast that takes you behind the scenes of one great travel story. I'm Catherine LeGrave, a deputy editor at Afar. I'm pretty lucky. I get to brainstorm, assign, and edit features for our print magazine, and I get to work with writers who have an ear for great travel stories. Anya von Bremzen is one such person. An Afar contributing writer, Anya originally trained as a concert pianist at Juilliard. She made the switch to writing after a hand injury, and dare I say, we're all the luckier for it. Anya has won multiple James Beard Awards for her work. Her most recent book, published in 2023, examines what famous dishes mean to places like Paris, Tokyo, and Istanbul. For our 2025 culture issue, Anya traveled to Valle de Guadalupe, Mexico, to explore its food and wine. And how convenient that it's just 2 hours by car from San Diego. I sat down with Anya to learn more about her time in Valle de Guadalupe and why, according to her, it's the anti-Napa in the most exciting way possible. Welcome. So happy to be chatting with you today. Thank you for making the time. I want to start with the general. You wrote that you were inspired to visit Valle de Guadalupe because of what you'd heard from Mexican food journalist colleagues. And I'm curious, what interested you about it?
Even before people started talking about the food, I started tasting the wines. And Valle de Guadalupe has been producing wines since the 80s. And they were like this, well-made increasingly, but anywhere kind of tasting wines, the usual California wannabe Chardonnays and whatever. And then in Mexico City at the bars, I started tasting wines that really just grabbed my attention and wanted me to go to the source. And this was accompanied by all the buzz of my Mexican colleagues who are pretty jaded because Mexico is an amazing place for food. We're saying, wow, this is something really new happening, just like this fresh energy. It's not like anything you've seen in Oaxaca or Puebla, the more traditional regions. And in combination with the wine, how rare it is to find this incredible new region so close to our own border.
I love that. So much of a place is about a feeling. So once you were there, I guess, what were the dominant feelings that you felt or experienced?
Well, the dominant feeling is that the roads are just a nightmare. I've been hearing about all those Michelin star restaurants and restaurants making it into 50 best. And then our very first dinner was at Lunario, which is this incredible Michelin Green Sustainability Star restaurant. And then someone from the restaurant offered to drive us back. And the road to our hotel was closed because the owner of a ranch decided to close the gate. So something that was on Google Maps 7 minutes was just over an hour of just bumpy dirt roads with no lighting. And I was, wow, you really have to want to come here to experience all this. And the story starts with one of the winemakers said, well, we've got the greatest food and wine and the worst roads.
Yes, I loved that line. That was such a fun tone-setting way to start the story.
But interestingly, a lot of the winemakers, local winemakers, are saying, well, bad roads is what is saving us from over-tourism. Because everywhere else, the region is being discovered. Water there is scarce. There are all kinds of environmental concerns. And another winemaker said, well, bad roads make good tourists. Again, you have to want to be there.
Were there any, you really go through a lot of wines in the story. I'm wondering if what you brought back or any particular ones that, they don't have to be your favorites, but kind of ones that stuck with you for the novelty in terms of maybe something that you really hadn't tasted before.
What I was surprised about is how taken the young winemakers are with natural wines. So there's this winemaker, Silvana Pejuan, that's making this great sauvignon blanc, which is amber, and it's called La Poubelle, which means trash can. It's very irreverent. But it's for such a young winemaker, it's just a beautifully mature wine with a long-lasting finish. It has kind of old soul to it. There was another amber skin contact Sauvignon Blanc from this winemaker, Veronica Santiago. That was also brilliant. And I'm not a huge fan of natural wines. So for me to gush about a natural wine, it has to be just really beautifully balanced and the wine that I would drink on any occasion. So we were going to Mexico City after that trip for a month, so I didn't bring anything back because you can get a lot of it in Mexico City, but I would definitely bring those.
Hmm.
And also there was this brilliant winemaker, Lulu Ojeda at Bruma, and she made some beautiful reds. Just again, balance. She worked in Bordeaux for 10 years. Just a very skillful winemaker, and the wines that just straddle the right balance between kind of edgy and natural and forward thinking, but also with this classic old soul that you just want to drink a lot.
And there's so many characters in the story. How many of these people had you connected with beforehand, or was it sort of serendipitous? I know this person, I know this person.
You have to prepare for a story like this because you're there for a short time and you really have to try to kind of sketch out your cast of characters for the story, because characters for me, especially in this region, is what really made the story. Everyone was just so articulate, and I speak fluent Spanish, but it was kind of this English Spanish mix, and everyone has so much to say and they had such interesting thoughts. So you start with one person who you think can connect you, and in my case it was David Castro Husong, the chef at Bruma, who I was introduced to by Mexican colleagues, and he kind of put me in touch with a lot of the people, and I knew he was cool, and I knew his friends would be cool, and it worked out exactly so beautifully. But then of course you always meet characters that you don't expect to meet.
Mm-hmm. Start with a cool person and expect that they will
The
have cool
cool
friends.
connected person.
Yeah.
The life of the party kind of person, right?
Exactly. So many of the characters in here, let's say, happen to be women. Was that something, women winemakers, was that something that you sought out as well, or you just wanted people that were doing cool things and they happened to be women?
A little bit of both. I started hearing, because you prepare for the story, you read a lot of other stuff, and I was reading that there were a lot of interesting women winemakers, which is really unusual, especially in a patriarchal country like Mexico. And then I was meeting more and more, and then Karina Campos of Baja Wine Food Travel, my guide, she turned out to have a tour actually that she does, starring female winemakers. So it was once you meet one or two, you start asking why there are so many female winemakers, and the answer was just because we can, just because a lot of winemakers had daughters, so the second generation, and this is a society that just doesn't care. I mean, Mexico is so sexist in so many other ways, but they really didn't mind when girls helped around in the winery, and they would say, the delivery guy anywhere else would come and ask for the dude in charge, and here, it's like I'm the boss. Okay, let's say, lady, fine. Here's your stuff, and so it was really revealing, because it's really not something you even encounter in Europe too much. I mean, Spain is leading the way, but in a place like Bordeaux, as one winemaker told me, well, if you're a woman in Bordeaux, you're either a marketing or in PR, or you're somebody's lover. And so people constantly ask her, are you someone's girlfriend?
That's quite the anecdote. You mentioned women leading the charge being unusual in a patriarchal country, and I'm wondering what else surprised you?
Well, it was really startling to me that in a place like Mexico, which is so weighed down with centuries of traditions and heritage, and is so rich in tradition and heritage, here were chefs and winemakers saying, well, we have no tradition, nothing holds us back, we're just a new region, and we can do whatever we want, we can invent our own concept of Baja cuisine, whatever it is, and it's all very personal, and it's all very of the moment, and we can mix different influences that will get us killed, in other parts of the country, because you can't really touch the mole. These things are like shrines, like these heritage objects. And it was just so incredibly refreshing. And you don't usually hear it from chefs and winemakers. You usually hear the opposite. Oh, we're such an old region. Here's how we do things. And our grandmothers did it this way. And it's like, we don't care about the grandmothers. Our grandmothers were horrible cooks.
And that extends to the wine, you say. Like, it's often compared to Napa, but it's sort of, I believe, or quote as the anti-Napa in many ways.
Yeah, because American wine regions are just so regulated and corporate, and so much about profit. And to meet so many winemakers that do like this really small batch production, and they say, we don't care about profit. We just want to do what we want to do. And some of it is really crazy, and some of it is pretty awful because they would mix all these different varietals like Spanish, French, California, Chilean grape. And you go, oh my God, you can't do this. And people say when Europeans come here, they faint. They're like, oh, how can you mix Nebbiolo and Tempranillo? But they do it, and some of it works and some of it doesn't. But it's really fun to see people trying.
Listener, thank you for tuning in to this inaugural episode of 5 Questions. In the show notes, you'll find a link to Anya's story and to her social media handles. Join me in 2 weeks for another episode that takes you behind the scenes with our award-winning features writers. I'll be talking with the Afar contributing writer Bonnie Choi, whose new book, On Muscle, is out now, and who recently traveled to Guangzhou, China, to explore the changing city and her relationship to it. Ready for more interviews with travel writers? Visit afar.com and be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. We're at Afar Media. If you enjoyed today's exploration, I hope you'll come back for more great stories. Subscribing always makes that easy. And be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast platforms. It helps other travelers find it. This has been 5 Questions, a production of Afar Media. The podcast is produced by Aislinn Green, Nikki Galtaland, and Catherine LeGrave.